Let's do this. Yeah.
The Earth is not your mother. The Joe Souchere Show.
We've asked, and he responded. Tom Hauser from 5 Eyewitness News has joined us. Tom's the political expert in town. I believe you were at these dueling press conferences.
I was, for better or worse, yes.
What does Melissa Hortman say? What does she mean when she's saying, unless we have power sharing, we're not showing up for work?
Well, the initial plan, when it appeared they were going to be 67 to 67 to start the session,
right,
was you have to have some kind of a power sharing agreement because the Constitution does not provide for what to do in this case. Should there be a co-speakers?
Right.
Should there be chairman, co-chairs of each committee, so one Democrat, one Republican? So a lot of those things. But once the judge ruled that Curtis Johnson had to relinquish the seat that he had won, that he doesn't hold yet, but to relinquish taking that seat because of that pesky issue of not living in the district.
Right.
Now it's a 67-66 advantage, not a majority, but an advantage for Republicans. So Republicans say there's no power to share because for at least 2 weeks, we have the power.
Right.
So Hortman is saying, well, we're not going to show up. We're not going to give you a quorum, so you can't vote to do anything. Now they're debating, okay, what constitutes a quorum?
Who's being petulant? No one?
You know, I think they're both asserting what they think is right, and Republicans are claiming about Democrats, look, you should have known this candidate you were running for this seat that is heavily Democratic. I mean, anybody with a DFL after the name was going to win that seat. So why they allowed a guy to run where there were questions about his residency is a debate for another day. But Republicans are saying, you should have known this. You didn't, or you claim you didn't. The guy's been ruled ineligible. So all of a sudden, you don't have the same number of members as we do.
Is this a seat Curtis Johnson held or vying for the first time?
No, he was vying for it for the first time. Held currently by a Democrat.
Right.
He won by thousands of votes. A Democrat will, in all likelihood, unless there's a meteor strike, will win it again on the 28th.
Just because people are they're not informed. I don't know how the people in that area could afford another Democrat, but apparently they always have.
Well, that you could raise that question about all of the districts that are either heavily Democrat or heavily Republican, and you go, how do you see the world so differently from everyone
The whole
else?
state, Tom.
How dare you see the world differently from me?
Yeah.
Okay, so what the Republicans perhaps were hoping to do was get something done in those 2 weeks?
Well, the main thing they want to get done is a Republican House Speaker.
Right, who would be Demuth.
Lisa Demuth. And she would, and the thing about that is, she wouldn't just be Speaker for 2 weeks.
Right.
She would be Speaker for 2 years because it would take 68 votes to remove her.
Right.
And even after Democrats win that special election, it would be 67-67. They wouldn't have the votes to remove her or change any of the rules that are put in place prior to it going back to 67 all.
Yeah, to remove her, they would have to get a Republican to join the 67 Democrats.
Yes.
And that's unlikely.
Very unlikely, yes.
I'm clear now. Basically, Hortman is saying we're not going to allow anything to happen here because we find that to be unfair to happen in a 2-week period.
Her point is the voters went to the polls and delivered 67 Democrats and 67 Republicans. This one Democrat is being forced to relinquish the rights to take that seat, even though he won the election. But Republicans say that's not our problem. He ran knowing he didn't live in the district. A judge ruled on this. There was a lot of evidence that was heard. And so Republicans are saying that's not our problem. That is your problem. And so for 2 weeks until the special election, we're going to have an advantage. So Democrats are saying, well, maybe not, because if we don't show up to give you a quorum, now the question is, do you need a majority of 133 or 134? At full strength, it would be 134, but there's going to be one fewer rep So 67 would be a majority of 133.
So my question for you, Tom, if it goes back to being tied and this power sharing is enacted, how much of a clown show is that on a daily basis? Does that actually work, power sharing?
Well, we don't know. It only happened one other time back in 1979. It worked really well until it didn't.
Right.
At the
Like my car.
Yes. At the end, literally, I've read accounts of what happened, and I've interviewed some lawmakers who served back then. There was people pounding their shoes on desks and yelling
fantastic.
and screaming. It was
Great.
similar to the end of our last legislative
right.
session. I will make a bold prediction right now based on how everything is going, and we haven't even talked about Scott County yet. When that judge's ruling comes down today or sometime this week, that could throw this into even more disarray.
Right.
But I believe that we're going to be staring at special sessions right up until June 30th, the day before the end of the fiscal year, because they can't even agree, on the shape of the table or the furniture in the room, and the tone has been set, and it's going to be very ugly.
This means job security for you. You should march into your boss's office and demand a raise.
Go down there and say, you cannot afford to be without me for the next 4 years.
And just one last thing on the Scott County thing. Keep in mind, that's the race where Brad Tapke, the Democrat, won by 14 votes, but 20 votes were thrown away. Democrats are claiming, we identified who those 20 ballots belong to. We had at least 6 of them come in and say, I voted for Tabke, meaning there wouldn't be enough votes to overturn it. However, what they conveniently dismiss is that the elections chief down there even admits we can't say with 100% certainty these were the 20 voters.
Oh, boy.
We think it is, but that's just not the way this works. And yesterday, Melissa Hortman, when I brought that point up to her, she goes, it doesn't have to be 100% for sure. It needs to be the preponderance of evidence.
No BS.
I always thought reasonable doubt was a pretty big standard in any legal proceeding. I know usually in criminal trials, but she says it has to be only a preponderance of evidence.
No, it doesn't.
I would think when it comes to voting and whether my vote counted or not, I would think you would want 100%.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you define a preponderance? Put a number to that.
Not when it comes to a vote, I can't.
Yes, it means a lot.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So you go and define what it means to be a lot. But let's just say, for instance, the judge says, we think there ought to be a special election. It's not even clear who then does that. Does it go back to the legislature to decide, that's what we're going to do, or is it up to the governor? We don't know exactly what is going to happen there, but if there is a special election in a district where it was decided by 14 votes, you could conceivably see millions of dollars spent on this one special election in Scott County, in Shakopee more specifically, because control of the Minnesota House would be at stake.
Right.
So a lot of moving parts at the Capitol.
So, Joe, I just need to let you know before Tom heads out, in negotiating his appearance here today on Garage Logic, he did something that Rook and I never would do. He put off lunch to come on the show here
I'm
today.
thinking about running
It's
down
sitting
there
on my
during the
desk
show,
down in the
yes.
newsroom. We
Tommy,
have a
my people
microwave.
don't do that.
What was this election today?
They eat first.
It was pork and rice, and it looks really good with a few different kinds of pickles.
Damn.
It looks.
You better take a long break.
It looks really good.
I would just like to, Tom, tell you that if we're going to invite you down here, you're going to have to look a little more casual, okay? To fit in.
I'm hoping you have
Jeans
tennis
really
shoes on.
Ruining our image.
I have
Yep.
jeans and running shoes on. Doesn't that
Okay,
Oh, good,
all right,
good.
that counts.
Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
And he's already done his makeup, so he's
It's
good.
business on the top, party on the bottom.
That's right.